Hello, everyone. Today I am here to talk to you about some ways and some strategies that we can help to navigate this potty journey that you have to inevitably take with your little one at home. My name is Nicole Leader, and I'm one of the occupational therapists here at Sturgeon School Division. So today, the things that I plan to discuss with you, first of all, we want to see what it means to set the stage so that our kids can have the greatest chance for success with the least amount of frustration. I'm also going to talk a little bit about setting up some reasonable routines and expectations for our children. And lastly, we all kind of will inevitably face some bumps on the road. So what are some ways that we can navigate some of those with relatively few frustrations, as few as possible? Toilet training is not just a journey that your child has to go through. It's a journey that you take with your child. So even before getting ready to embark and head down the forward moving path, I always recommend taking a minute, pausing, and checking in with ourselves. Is this even a good time for the parent to be starting toilet training? Is there a big move coming? Are you expecting a baby within the next month or two? Is there going to be a deployment coming up soon? Big holidays or vacations, things like that. If you are anticipating any of these big events, maybe it's worth stepping back for a minute and going, should we wait a minute or two? Consistency is key. So making sure that all of the adults in the team are on board and ready to give all of their cognitive faculties and emotions to the success is really important and essential. Even for myself, despite all my years of making this recommendation, had my twins first, and before our third came along, I was like, there is no way I'm changing 3 diapers. I am not doing it. Put my foot down and I said, we are going to toilet train these first 2 before the next one comes. And in the end, we weren't successful. We had to kind of reset and stop because it made for a very high pressure situation where I was stressed, the kids were stressed, and there was just a lot of frustration with a little less progress than we had hoped for. So, check with yourself. Are you ready to be calm? Are you ready to present all these little challenges and setbacks with a deep breath and, it's no big deal? Or are we feeling pressured? And is that something we're going to be bringing into this potty journey? Really, potty training is not just as easy as getting up, going to the bathroom, and going in the toilet. There are so many little steps. And I've broken down the toilet training into 12 steps here, but honestly, you could break it down into even more steps than that. So it's not as simple as one might think. It's just one thing that we need to recognize, that there are so many small steps that our children need to go through when they're working from diapers all the way towards independently using the toilet with success. And one of those first steps, or the first 2 steps, first of all, is to recognize the fact that you even have to go. Then recognize early enough and make sure you have enough time to leave what you're doing and then transition to the toilet to be successful. So, that is something that even adults sometimes have a hard time with. And recognizing and understanding those body signals and managing all those steps with confidence can sometimes be a later developing skill. Oftentimes, even our typically developing children will need to rely on an adult's help to kind of say, hey, remember, we're going to the bathroom before we get in the car. And we can expect that even into kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2 even. So Children with any developmental disabilities, whether it be even just a language delay or something more significant, we can expect that they're going to need even more years of support. And so, it's easy to get frustrated, but at the same time, you can go, wow, this is a big thing. There's a lot of kids that are also needing this support. It's not just mine. And sometimes it's best to kind of look down that list of small steps and start somewhere else. We might start with just washing our hands or flushing the toilet, getting changed in the bathroom, and then move our way up that list of small increments towards toilet training. One of the first things we want to do is, first of all, teach the kids about what toileting is. We want to say that in not a big way, but just a way that they understand. And a lot of that is just through exposure. We want to teach through, maybe watching older siblings go to the bathroom. We all know that as a parent, any sense of privacy kind of goes out the window, because if you go to the toilet, they're banging on the door anyway. So, take that as an opportunity to say, hey, look, I'm sitting on the toilet. I can do it. I'm big. I can grab my toilet paper and wash my hands. Let's make the toilet flush, and kind of walking them through it. You might choose to use toys, even in a really natural, neutral setting. You could be building Duplo and have the little man go, hey guys, I'm coming. I just have to go to the bathroom first, and play, kind of work in some toileting play, if that makes sense. There are so many books out there that talk about and teach about using the toilet, but you can also build something that's called a social story that is created specifically for your child, to teach your child about maybe their more unique hurdles. And that's something that your therapist, either your speech therapist or your OT, or even your teacher, can help you with, so that they have a really personalized story to teach them specific skills around navigating using the toilet. So just building that exposure and understanding through really neutral opportunities is one of the first places to start. Next, we want to introduce what toilet training might mean to this child and help them envision what it looks like for them to be on their own journey towards using that toilet. We want to get them involved with the idea, starting to think about themselves, like, hey, what would I like? What would I like if I was using the toilet? Can I pick out my own underwear? Can I pick out what color of footstool I have? Maybe it's getting them excited about going in and picking a smelly soap that they can use for washing their hands. Planning ahead what small reward might be something that we can have on hand that would motivate our child. Really, it's just planning ways to get our child engaged and excited so that they can take this step forward with a little bit of optimism. Yeah, and because really, toilet training is about setting new expectations and raising those expectations from our child, we're creating change. Anytime that we create change, we need to anticipate that our child might experience some anxiety. This is really new and novel, and even us adults really don't love new and novel experiences. It kind of can give you a little bit of nervousness, of anticipation. So, we want to, first of all, just make the bathroom and associate it with those really positive experiences and positive associations by moving everything toilet into the washroom, and kind of pairing that toileting routine with this specific space. Many of us start with babies, changing diapers kind of wherever it is convenient. Especially if you're supervising other kids, whether it be, a grandparent or a day home, and you're trying to change a baby while there's other kids running around, and sometimes it's just easier to kind of lay them down and change them wherever you're at. You know, so taking that and just shifting and moving even those diaper changes into the bathroom is a really significant step, and can sometimes take time. It's not always easy. Kids are used to laying on the ground and having somebody else managing all of their diapering routines, and kind of are a passenger on that journey. So once they're old enough, we often encourage children to move into the bathroom and even explore standing changes rather than laying on the ground. Kids, no longer associate toileting with laying on the ground and having somebody else do those jobs for them. We want to encourage as much independence and participation as we can. And it might mean just kind of like taking a toilet or a diaper, or maybe a visual, and saying, hey, it's time for toileting. Come on with me. Grab your book. We're going to go and into the bathroom and get all cleaned up. And so we're just slowly moving all of our toileting expectations into that specific area to meet all of our toileting needs. We also want to consider our child's dressing skills. One of those things that we need to do every day is work towards getting dressed independently. So, we do it in the morning, we do it at night, we do it with diaper changes. So why not work opportunities for practice and independence into those already natural routines that we're doing? Help them take those pants off each and every time. Help them try to pull them up. Consider dressing them in some clothes that maybe aren't, that are maybe a little bit looser fitting, that don't have, tight fasteners, maybe sweatpants or leggings, things like that, that can allow for a greater chance of success and independence. Is a really great plan. I know some of those trendy clothes are really cute and you can't help but put your little guys in them, but it's hard for kids to manage snaps and zippers and buttons. And sometimes a pair of loose, baggy sweatpants is the best option while they're trying to learn how to toilet train. And then as they build their skill, we just want to slowly pull back so that it's almost not noticeable, just enough for them to be successful. That's how much help we want to give them. And with lots of encouragement, like, yeah, you can do it. Put your hands right here. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, up. And making it a really light-spirited way to engage them in some of those simple dressing skills. They also, while they're working on dressing, are working towards independence with toilet training, but they're also working on building their hand strength, coordination, object manipulation, a lot of core strength when they're bending and twisting, manipulating those clothing items. So there's a lot of things that they're actually working on and building on their way to making sure that they can get dressed independently. And we just want to stretch their independence and participation as we go. And yeah, sometimes even as parents and adults, we don't realize the little successes until we're like, whoa, how can you do this by yourself? So that's we want to make subtle progress, but mindfully pulling back so that we're always kind of pushing that next step in a really quiet but mindful way. And we want to make sure that we're setting the stage for the toileting success. Our kids, those little toilets, are just not made for little bums. And we know that our it's just natural that we crave to be grounded. So our kids really need to have something that they can put their feet on so that they feel really stable. We want to make sure that our little guys are well supported and that our kids' feet are well supported. I know that even as an adult, when we sit down in a bar stool, there are very few adults that I've ever seen that don't sway those feet around, kind of looking for some kind of security and some kind of grounding. And so that need for stability never changes. But our kids, they're constantly having to hold the edge of the toilet or lean forward and balance and tense their body, worrying about whether or not they're going to tip forward or backward, then it's actually really hard for them to tense the right muscles for stability while relaxing the muscles that they need to in order to allow for that peeing or pooping action. That's a very challenging skill that a lot of adults even have a hard time with. So we want to make sure that they have a small seat, that their feet are well supported, and that they're able to go into the room and relax. And you know what? Their needs may change over time. You might start with that little potty on the ground, and then you might move to a reducer ring on the toilet, or maybe you've got one in each bathroom, a different option, whatever works. There's no right or wrong answer. The key is just to make sure that you have a child-friendly, safe environment that allows for stability. Along with that sense of needing to feel stable, there are also other kinds of sensory information that we need to take into consideration when we're moving kids into the bathroom. At home, our kids oftentimes are a lot more comfortable in a very familiar bathroom where they often might have fun and splashing in the bathtub, or maybe they brush their teeth, or they've gone into and out of the bathtub with mom. So it's not a stressful environment. They kind of know what to predict and what to anticipate. But then moving into a public bathroom is completely different. It's an entirely different setting. It might feel different in terms of the way it looks, the way it sounds, the unpredictability of other people coming in and out, how big or small it is, the temperature. And, you know, kids might not even realize when they're first starting that those public washrooms have the same function as some of those personal washrooms in the home. So it's really important to kind of just talk about and think about your child's sensory needs before you're starting, and then to give grace, realizing that success at home won't necessarily mean a quick success out in public. And that there are lots of sensory needs that our child may have that we need to try to anticipate and plan around. You know, getting them used to even just sitting on the toilet while you take their diapers on and off, and help them to familiarize, calm, and relax in that space is huge, so that they're letting go of some of those anxieties. We might have things like sounds. This is a huge hurdle that oftentimes as a therapist we have questions around. You know, a child heard the really loud automatic hand dryer, or they sat on the toilet and the toilet flushed automatically, and now we can't get back in the toilet. So that loud, unpredictable sound is really can really strike a lot of fear in our children. So you know, we want to prepare them for those sounds. You know, get ready, it's going to flush, it might be noisy, remember. And then we want to give them that you can language, that positively phrased language, so that we're giving them coping skills. So remember, you can hold my hand and squeeze my hand while you do it. You can plug your ears like this. You can choose to close the lid or leave the lid open when you flush it. You can have mommy do it, or you can do it, so that we're giving them some power and we're giving them some coping skills to manage that. And sometimes even bringing humor. Hey, weren't supposed to flush yet. What are you doing? You know, sometimes that humor can kind of get rid of all those stress hormones and help them to realize, oh, this isn't as big of a deal as I thought it was. So all of those things are tools that we can practice at home, so that our children can take those coping skills with them when they move into more public settings. We might want to consider things like temperature as well. So do they not like the cold seat? Sometimes little children, even just sitting on the seat and having that the feeling of the cold water and cold air kind of next to their bottom, can be really stressful. for children. So is there a way that we can maybe like keep the door close to the bathroom so that the temperature is a little bit more humid? Or can we get a padded seat rather than one of those hard, cold seats? Would that help with our toileting success? Are there things like maybe changing the light bulbs to a different brightness, or taking a light bulb out so that not all the lights are on if they're really sensitive to lighting? Thinking about touching and wiping, helping them prepare. Okay, get ready, I'm going to wipe. Or do you want to wipe, or do you want, mom or daddy to wipe? Even considering the texture of the toilet paper. Some toilet papers are better than others. And until you can kind of anticipate what that sensation is going to mean when we're wiping, sometimes a child might need a different wiping product that's not quite as rough or abrasive. And then also just talking about all those internal sensations. Like I already mentioned earlier on, they're really hard to identify, especially for children. So even talking about how their body might feel is a big step towards building that awareness of needing to go, oh, does your tummy feel tight or cramping? Can you feel pain? I wonder if maybe we need to go to the bathroom. Let's go try. Or building that body awareness in other ways as well. Like, oh, golly, look, your body is so hot and wet after running all day. You must be tired. Or I can see your eyes are really squinty. Is that sun too bright for you? Talking about things like thirst and hunger and emotions and cold and hot, and just building all of the awareness about that internal sensation in lots of different ways helps to fill our child's buckets of knowledge when it comes to those signals their body is giving them. Oftentimes when we have a child that's kind of hit a hiccup, there's something sensory related that we just didn't anticipate. It could be, like they didn't like the splashing of the toilet or the poop when they sat on the toilet, and that created some anxiety around sitting on the toilet. Or it could be that, they heard something in the hallway when they were going one time, and that was enough to go, oh, I don't know what that sound in the hallway was. And they kind of build this association with the toileting and that sense of anxiety and surprise. So thinking sensory is huge when we're navigating our toileting journey at the beginning as well as all the way throughout. And we really just want to give them those skills to navigate them independently so that they're not becoming a huge hurdle. We want to recognize that there's maybe some sensory limitations or exceptions to consider, and then say, hey, it's okay. This is what we can do about it. And it's just a matter of fact. Yeah, setting the stage. We did already talk a little bit about making sure that those kids feel safe and secure when they're on their toilets. And there's so many ways you can do that. One of the systems that worked really well with my family, as well as with quite a few other families that I have heard from, is those built-in reducer rings. They're always there. They're easy to access and put up and down. You don't have to find a place to store them. They're easy to keep clean. And children can put them on and off independently. So that is one tool that I have found a lot of success with. But there are a lot of families and a lot of preferences of children as well that look like other options. And as long as you know that the seat is small enough for your child to ensure that they feel safe and secure, there really isn't a wrong answer. You really just need like a footstool and a little seat, maybe something that they can rest their arm on or hold on to if they need it, if they need that extra stability. Sometimes if your child has other physical needs, you may need to reach out to either your occupational therapist or your physical therapist to look at more specific equipment to put in place. And so if that's the case, if you have a child with, for instance, cerebral palsy or other physical needs, you can always reach out to us and we can try to put you in contact with the right person to help navigate that more specialized equipment. But in general, you as a parent or caregiver, you know your child best. So when you're picking out the right tools, think of the child first. For instance, if you know that they struggle with transitioning, and if you're going to have to transition from a little potty into the big toilet one day, maybe they're a child that it's best just to, skip that little potty phase and go with the stool and a reducer ring on your typical toilet. Maybe if it's a child that you really can't even get into the bathroom, period. So that's the first step you're working on, is working towards the bathroom. Then we introduce a little potty in their play area, and then we slowly move that back to the bathroom over time. So you know the child's personality, you know their developmental needs, and we kind of use that information to help us determine what the best tool is to start so that we can make this a really positive experience. So yeah, there's not only one way to work on toilet training, but once we've introduced what the bathroom's for, once we've started to get them used to being in the bathroom in a really positive way, once we've kind of looked at their sensory needs and the different sounds and lights and temperatures in the bathroom, and we've got our equipment in place so that our child feels secure and stable, then next comes sitting. This can be actually really hard. Sitting means waiting, and waiting is hard for absolutely everybody. I mean, there is not a adult in the world that likes sitting and waiting, even if it's just sitting on the toilet and waiting. So we want to make it as fun within reason that we can. We don't want our kids to have to sit and wait too long, and we don't want it to be a chore that they associate with this resistance or this negative feeling, because that's going to create an obstacle in the long run. So in the beginning, keep it short. Maybe it's singing one verse of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Maybe it's counting to 5. Maybe it's reading, the first page of a board book. It could be taking a car and driving it up and down their arms. Any way that you can keep them engaged in a really short, positive, and motivating way is where we're starting. If they won't sit on the open toilet, then maybe it's just like we close the lid and we say, hey, way to go. You came into the bathroom. Here, hold this, or sit right here while I get your shoe on, or while I get your sock on. And we kind of go that back way, the back door, where we get used to sitting for just a blip of time in a really functional way. And then when they do it, we go, wow, you sat on the seat. That's so awesome. You're getting so big, and we celebrate every tiny little step. And yeah, so we do that by kind of using the child's interest to get them to sit and wait. And then eventually we can get them sitting long enough that their body can kind of trigger that need to go. There are going to be tons of opportunities where the child is going to sit and nothing's going to happen. And we just need to recognize that that's okay. And we're not celebrating that they go or they don't go at that point. We're just celebrating that they're there and that they've tried. We want to practice that sitting with every diaper change, just so that they get used to the idea that, oh, this is where the toileting jobs are done. When I go pee and poop, I have to sit on the toilet. And that is done with a lot of practice and a lot of repetition. And we want to just work on keeping it short and functional as you first sit on that toilet. Okay, I'm gonna get the diaper ready. Sit right here. You wait. Let's see how fast I can be. And we just want to keep it really functional, really practical, short, leave on a positive note. Oftentimes, I do recommend sitting even for boys, especially when they're learning to go pee and poop. It's just one less transition. As they're learning those signals, do I have to go pee? Do I have to go poop? Do I stand to do this job? Do I sit to do this job? If we just kind of work on sitting, that covers both options at that point. And often it's cleaner for those little guys. But that being said, there are a lot of little ones that, that motivational carrot is actually standing independently like dad or like their brother. And that's what gets them to go. So even as I say, I often recommend learning and sitting for boys. That's not always the case. So like I said, you got to know your kid best, and, use their interests as much as you can. This is a hard one. It's a big shift for most parents. If we're used to working with older kids or adults, if this is your first child and saying, hey, do you need to go? Or I'm going to stop at the bathroom, and assuming that they're going to come with you if they need to go. That's not the case for our littles that are just learning to go to the bathroom. We want to make sure that we're maintaining a really calm, matter-of-fact approach, being mindful of your facial expression and voice, and just say, hey, it's time to go, rather than, do you need to go? So we're telling, we're not asking. We can make that a little bit more pleasant by saying, hey, do you want to go in 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Do you want to take this toy or this toy? What bathroom do you want to use? It's time to go to the bathroom. So we can give them some choice and some independence in that aspect, but the going isn't really a choice. So learning to be mindful of your language is a really hard skill as a parent to tackle. And in general, we want to remember, tell, don't ask. We want to practice through routine. So there are a lot of books out there that work on, the weekend potty training and things like that. But in general, if you make potty training a part of your routine and you build it into those natural transitions that you're already doing anyways, we're already getting out of our PJs, we're already walking past the bathroom out to the car, we're already moving from our toys to the table. So those things that we're already doing, and then we just add a little quick stop into the bathroom, oftentimes it helps to avoid the I don't want to go or that power struggle. We have, the timer went, it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes or a half an hour later, and then having to get that child to leave their favorite toy again, leave the TV show that they're watching again. When they're planning in their mind to go to play with a certain stuffy, and we say, nope, you have to come this way. Sometimes that can be really frustrating for both the child and the caregiver. And it works sometimes, but a lot of times it can just lead to a lot of negative frustration. So, building it into really natural times can be, can just alleviate some of that stress. You can also incorporate things like timers, like I'm setting the timer. When the timer goes off, it's time to go, to make it more predictable. But it's good to kind of be mindful of all those trips and how you can work a few trips into the toilet in a natural setting, rather than every half an hour on the dot or every hour on the dot. Also, using some of that first then language can be a huge help when it comes to removing that power struggle as you transition through those routines. So you might say, oh, it's time for snack. Let's first go pee and wash your hands, and then the snack's ready. Or, we're going for a car ride. Let's first go pee and then we'll hop in the car. So kind of planting that more preferred thing after the toilet training trip can kind of eliminate that power struggle. Like, okay, whenever you're ready, I'm going to be waiting outside in the car. There's not very many, 3-year-olds that are excited about mom and dad going out to the car, and they'll often just go, woo, I got to go quick. I don't want to get left behind. So, we don't need to make it into this big battle of negotiation. Sometimes that first then language can be this magic tool. It's much like a timer. Sometimes that can be just a magic tool that goes, whoa, the timer went off. I've got to go. So yeah, this builds in lots of opportunities to build that positive association for success. And because it's not necessarily about going pee or poop at that time, but about sitting, dressing, hand washing, following a routine, and then following whatever step comes next on your daily journey. With independence kind of being that end result, we're getting good at all the steps that move towards that end result. And we want to make sure that our kids can feel good about that. Like, hey, you're pulling down your pants. That's awesome. Let's see if you can pull up your pants. Or, man, you made it through 2 whole songs while we were sitting. Way to go. Hey, today you were able to wash your hands and stay calm while we did that. You're getting so big. So as we're praising all of those little steps and successes along the way, we also want to make sure that they're understanding and remembering what those little steps are. So as we fade our support, we're building their own independence. And visual schedules are things that even adults use, but we might like make a to-do list or put it in our calendar. Or so although oftentimes you might go, gosh, does our child really need this? Sometimes these visual sequences just help our children to process those expectations and to know what to come. And it reminds them of these next steps, like washing their hands and washing the toilet. So we do at the school have some of these. And if you would like any visual schedules, or if you want to ask about how to make one, you can always reach out to your school or your therapist. And that's something that we can make sure you have access to. But while we're teaching our children how to use these, we want to teach them in context. So make sure you're placing these in a really meaningful way, so that while they're sitting on the toilet, you can talk about those steps. Like, hey, look, you pulled your pants down, you're sitting on the toilet. What's going to come next? I wonder. And you're kind of talking about that in the context. You're building that association so that they know what the meaning behind these visuals are. Images aren't necessarily a magic tool if we don't teach how to use these tools. So there does take a little bit of teaching behind them. Putting that hand washing one by your sink, the toileting one by the toilet, so that they have some context and meaning behind what those pictures are. So in order to prepare our children for teaching those toilet readiness skills, it is important to build a routine. If your child's already doing all of these steps, they're already dressing independently, they're already going into a bathroom comfortably, they're already willing to flush the toilet, but we're just not peeing and pooping on the toilet, you're kind of like, gosh, I don't get this. What's happening? So sometimes we can need a little bit of detective work. It might be worth doing some tracking, maybe over a couple days, kind of tracking what our patterns of accents or pees and poops are, so that we can kind of look at that pattern and say, is there a rhyme and a reason to when you're going or how you're going, or what type is your poop really hard? Is it really soft? Building those routine trips to the toilet during times where they're more likely to go builds the likeliness that we're going to have success. So tracking can be a tool that parents can use to pull out when we're like, okay, so normally right after supper, maybe half an hour after supper, my child often goes and hides in the corner and poops. So during that half an hour, you might kind of put your hyper vigilant lens on and watch for those signs, like, oh, he's going, just to kind of like build the likeliness that we're going to be able to associate trips to the toilet with success, and that sensation with going into the toilet, rather than having to go every half an hour and building that frustration with your child. So tracking is something that we can do to help with fueling our basket of knowledge. Also building in routine times that are more likely for success, like right before the bath or right in first thing in the morning is also a good way to kind of get that forward momentum. And we can, if our child, for instance, is hiding in the corner, that hiding is definitely a sign that like, oh, our child is probably getting ready to move towards that toilet. We might just say, hey, is that you hiding in the corner? Do you have to poop? And then, without putting that pressure to sit on the toilet, we can say, it's okay. Here, you can come hide in the toilet or in the bathroom. I'm going to close the door and you tell me when you're all done, and then I'll come and change you. So it might even just mean building that safe place to go poop in the washroom without the pressure of stop, get on the toilet, quick. And so that they can still relax, but we're kind of moving that experience into that washroom. It also, if your child is really struggling with toileting, it could mean that there's something else at work. It could mean something like constipation or other medical implications in the background. Constipation is very common. I think the last time I read, it was like 5 out of 6 children or something ridiculous have experienced bouts of constipation at some time in their development. So that constipation can sometimes lead to pain, cramping, just discomfort, and from that anxiety related to that negative experience. So making sure that we can consider if there's anything maybe at play in the background that we need to follow up with our doctor with, because it can definitely muddle our success when we aren't feeling well and not making it to the toilet on time because of that, or not wanting to use the toilet because of pain. So sometimes it's worth reaching out to either your therapist or your doctor to kind of say, hey, could this be impacting our progress? And so that we can take that into consideration and make the necessary changes. We talked a little bit about going to the bathroom at natural routines. So yeah, just over the years, I found that those typically developing children, and even those with those developmental challenges, sticking to those natural routines like after meals, before naps, before car rides, oftentimes will give you just as much success as any toileting plan. Using those natural routines can, as your strategy ensures that your child has really clear and predictable expectations with advance notice. It doesn't change from day to day. It's a natural, so sometimes you're already in that transition. It helps build that consistency for yourself as well as the child, and your child can kind of go, yeah, oh, right. I always have to go pee before I go outside and put my ski pants on. It helps to prepare their body. It helps to prepare their mind. It helps to remove as much anxiety or surprise that there is around toileting as we can. And it helps to remove that negative, or the negotiation that you might have as a parent as well. So it's okay to say, after 5 minutes, we're going potty and then snack, or do you want to go in 5 or 10 minutes? But we don't need to worry about, I don't want to go, I want to do this first. We can kind of just matter of fact, well, snack's here. So first toilet, then snack. And that expectation is really clear and predictable for our kids. Those pictures can be used to help our child to understand when they need a little bit more support with those transitions. First, then, is a language we use, but also you can use visuals and present them in that first then to help kids kind of go, oh, you're right. I know what's coming, and it can help to reduce the repetitions. We hand them the picture and they can look at that, digest it, process what it means, and take that visual cue to help them guide their actions. For some kids, it might mean bringing out a diaper. It doesn't necessarily have to be a picture. It could be, hey, it's time for your diaper change. And that can be as much as we need for a visual cue. Reward charts are something that you can use to that your children can use to build their pride and to reflect on their achievement. It doesn't have to mean that you get a sticker only when you go to the bathroom and that you're successful. It can be as little as like, okay, every day you come into the bathroom today, I'm going to give you a check mark. And at the end of the day, you look at it, whoa, you came into the bathroom 10 times. That's awesome. Here, let's have a sticker. Or let's have a chance to sing a 2-minute song with mom. You know, those rewards can be really small. They don't need to be big things. Sometimes if they're really big, it's hard to keep that up. But if you keep the rewards really small, that can be something that's achievable and something that you can take with you. It's really accessible. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we're practicing those routines and daily transitions, and as that's one of the most effective and realistic strategies to be consistent with for yourself and for your kids. If you even start with picking, 4 trips to your toilet, that's probably plenty in the beginning. And some of those really natural transitions that are going to happen anyway would be first thing in the morning, after a meal or snack, before your bath, before bed. So if you pick just a few times, keeping it small, and then work up to about 6 to 8 trips. So about every 2 to 2.5 hours a day. That's what is often typical even for adults or older children. So starting small and then building the frequency of those trips up as your child kind of builds their capacity for success. And that'll kind of help to mitigate some of that resistance to toilet training and conflict that you might have in that parent-child relationship. So how do we keep them sitting? Ultimately, one thing that works for sure, and one thing that our kids really crave and want more than anything, is our attention, that one-on-one attention. When you're able to go to those trips with them, sit with them, talk with them, read a book with them, play games with them, that can sometimes be, 1 or 2 minutes that of invested time that those kids take with them that fills their buckets, and that really helps to build that relationship with the parent. So honestly, adult attention is sometimes one of the greatest motivators out there. But I've had other kids that, they'll bring a little bucket on a TV tray and they'll play in the water for a long time, and that's something they really like to do. So whatever your child's interest is, follow their lead, making things really successful and achievable. They might even have a little toy that they use only for toileting, and they can take it with them when they wash their hands, something like that. You might start with singing a song really slow or really fast, and then you sing that song really slow, and then maybe you sing that song twice, or maybe you take a turn singing it in a silly voice and then a quiet voice and a loud voice. And so you can kind of extend that over time while you kind of interact and play games with your kids, working on increasing that amount of time that they're willing to sit to a reasonable amount. Make sure that that we reward all of those steps and every accomplishment, and we just really celebrate it. Sometimes going in pee and poop in the bathroom is a long way off, and it's a long journey. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining that engagement and that anticipation all the way throughout, and we're keeping it really positive. After, if your child's not picking it up quickly, and after a month or 2, you might be like, oh my goodness, we're still doing this. And so, just continue to find those ways to go, man, you came into the bathroom and I didn't even have to ask you, or I love how you remembered to put the seat down, or, just like, I can't believe you're trying to pull your pants up all by yourself. Whatever step your child is at, we want to make sure that we're just continuing to build that pride and that success that your child is having through those really intentional and specific reinforcements. Yeah. And then as you build more independence, we kind of fade those back. We might, rather than doing a big surprise every time they sit on the toilet, we might, just go, yeah, way to go. And then we save that big surprise for the next step. And we kind of sort of like either space out the frequency of those big yay potty parties, and so that they have to kind of work on accomplishing that next step to achieve that big reinforcement. And as a parent, you can kind of oftentimes sneak that first on language into working towards the next step. For instance, if they've coming in and they're just working on pulling their diaper on and off, you can go, okay, first sit on the toilet and I'm going to go get your treat, or sit on the toilet quick and I'll put your toilet or your diaper on so that we can go snuggle on the couch. And so you're still like, oh, we're working on sitting on the toilet while we're focusing on our big celebration. So sometimes that can be a really sneaky way to get your children to still push their boundaries and their independence onto that next step of their toileting journey. So some of those takeaways that I want to just review as we come to the end of this toileting presentation is that we want to remember to give our kids that advance notice, but our language is one of our greatest tools, and we want to make sure that we're telling and not asking for those potty breaks. Just keep it calm, matter of fact. Hey, it's time to go to the bathroom. And then giving them some choice as you can in that moment, but with a very clear plan of moving to the toilet. We want to move everything we can that's potty and washroom related into the bathroom for standing changes, for cleaning, for getting our new diapers on, giving them the permission to hide in the bathroom for bowel movements, if that's what step we're on, without having that pressure of sitting on the toilet, washing our hands every time we try or every time we do toileting tasks. And then we want to build those trips into those natural routines. So it's easier for you to be consistent and it's easier for the kids to know what to expect. Find ways to reward that success so that your kids can build confidence and independence while we're really mindfully stretching and rewarding those next steps as we can, and pulling back as much of our support as we can that still ensures that our kids can be successful. A little bit of a struggle is needed for you to learn, but too much of a struggle makes the experience frustrating. So there is that just right challenge that we want to continue to present, and that will change as our skill grows. We want to stay calm and positive. It's really hard as a parent, especially when this isn't a really quick one and done in a weekend experience, but anticipating that laundry, anticipating the fact that your child may move forward, but then they may also move back. That's okay. The potty journey is not a straightforward linear journey. We can expect a little bit of regression when our kids have things like growth spurts, or maybe their sleep patterns are changing. Maybe their language development is growing. So as we see some of these changes in our children that aren't related to toileting, it's not uncommon to see that they do regress a little bit. And that's okay. It's natural. That is part of the journey and part of the process. So, taking a breath and going, oh my gosh, we're stepping back again. That's one of those hats that we need to put on as a parent. And just kind of ignoring when we see those 2 steps forward and 1 steps back, because rest assured that we know that your child is not the only child that's going to be having accidents. When they come to kindergarten or even grade 1, grade 2, and that's okay. We just meet that child where they're at. We accept what stage of their journey they're at, and we find ways to support that journey, because they will get there. There is an end in sight. Just remember, give yourself time, give your child time, recognize that there's lots of hard work on both sides, your side and your child's side. Don't give up. Stay calm, be consistent. You'll get there. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to your school or reach out to your teacher or your therapist, and we can help problem solve some of those more specific bumps that might pop up along your journey. For children that have more complex needs, there is a government program called Alberta Aids to Daily Living that may be able to help offset some of the costs of either toileting equipment or incontinent products for those children that are over 4. And so once again, just reach out to your therapist and we can help to point you in the right direction if that's appropriate for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my presentation on that supporting your child on their toileting journey. And I look forward to hearing from you.